Hi guys, welcome to Digital Tech Join. I hope everybody is doing good. In this video tutorial, we are going to show you how to consume a web API that has the endpoint secured using JWT Token. Now this is the fifth video that I am releasing on web API. We already have a playlist in our channel where I have already uploaded 4 videos. The first one, how to develop a web API in 60 minutes. Then we showed you in the second video how to consume that web API in your ASP.NET MVC application. In the third video, I showed you some of the best practices that you need to implement or adopt while consuming your web API. And finally, in the fourth video, I showed you how to secure your web API by implementing JSON Web Token, that is JWT Web Token. Now, once you implement your JWT token in your web API, you need to make some changes in your ASP.NET MVC project to consume those web API, because you need to pass the token for every request. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you how do we do that. Now, before we proceed, let me run this project that we had created. So this is a project that we had created, and here in my last video, this web API project which you can see, demo.api, I implemented JWT token. I also created a table in my database called local users, and I had inserted one record called admin, having the role of an admin. Okay, so I did not create registration in this project because once I showed you all the concept, you should be able to also create one more user control over here, or you can write routines so that you can register user. So finally, what we are going to do is that in our school management, we are going to create a login page, and we will add more users over here. Right now we'll use admin, and then we'll use more users with different role and see how we can control the entire model using the authorize role feature. So first thing we're going to do is that we will actually run this project, and then we will, once we run the project, we'll just recap quickly. So yeah, so this is our project, ASP.NET MVC project student, where we showed you how to display student details, add and update details using the web API. And this is our Swagger. This is an API endpoint. Now we had created student endpoint over here, having all the capabilities for fetching students and adding students. And then in the last video, I had shown you, I had created a user control called users, where actually we are using a login. So we are authenticating user. The user is already there in the database, and inserted that. And once we authenticate, we are giving them the token that is used to call all the student endpoints. So I'll just show that once quickly. So I'll just open the Postman as well. So this way you'll also learn how to use Postman. You can use the Swagger, but I'm still showing you because Postman is widely used. So we click on new. Now here, if you go to my Swagger tool, you can see we are going to create a login, okay, and generate a token. So this is my endpoint, that is API user login, and this is a post method, and this uses username and password as an input string. So I'm going to change the method to post, and this is my URL, my Swagger URL tool. So I'm copying this over here, API/user login. So let me just confirm that. Okay, so yes, let me just confirm that over here, user login, and it takes this. So I'm just going to copy this. This might require over here. Click on body, click on draw, and it's JSON. Paste it, and here I'm going to say admin, and my password is also admin. Let me go and check that once. You can see admin and admin, and then I'm going to click on send. Here you can see it was successfully 200. Okay, here this is the user details which is fetched from my database. These are the user details, plus you can see I have also received the token. Now basis this token, I'll open one more request over here, and now I'm going to call my student API. So this is my get student API. So I'm going to say API students. So here I'll copy this URL again, and instead of users it will be students. This is a get method, and this is the students. Let me just check one. Yes, students. and this is a get method, and I'm not going to pass the bearer token in the header and see what happens. Here you can see 401 unauthorized. So I'm going to copy this token over here and come to this students, click on header, select authorization over here, type in bearer, space, enter, and paste it. So now I'm passing the token and I should be able to fetch the record. You can see the record is fetched. Now since this is a Postman, it has the capability where I can pass the bearer token and fetch the record. But in our project we'll have to make those changes. The first thing we'll have to do in our project, which is over here, we have to create a login page and allow the user admin to log in. So once he logs in, we also need to provide a capability to log out, and then we should be able to pass in the token of the logged in person to all the students endpoints that we requested from our MVC project. Now if you come to our project over here, which is right now running, and if you click on student, it is supposed to fetch all the records, but we will face an issue because we are not passing any token. So let's see that. I click on students, and here you can see the response HTTP request exception. Response to the code does not indicate success, unauthorized. You see the same error message which when we got over here when actually I had removed the token. So this is the same thing which we are getting over here. So this tutorial we are going to deep dive and create a login screen and in our school management and pass the token to the respective APIs and see how things work. So let's get started. So I'm going to now stop debugging and close all the windows. The first thing you need to do is that go to our demo API. Make sure that you go to our student controller. In my last video, I had shown you that in my get all student, I had added authorize. So make sure that you add this to all the method here. Get student also I've added authorize. In the add student, I have not. So make sure that you paste this over there also, because every method when you add authorize to your endpoints, that means you're securing and you're telling your project that no request will be serviced unless you pass a valid token ID. So in my update students also, I wish that it should be authorized. I want it to be authorized. Then delete also, obviously I want it to be authorized. So make sure that in your demo API project that we created last time as authorized for all the endpoints. So once it is done, you just build this project once, rebuild the project, demo API. Okay, and it is ready. It's rebuild successful. Now we'll close this window, and now our project work starts in school management project. Okay. So first thing we are going to do is that we need the models that we created over here. So if you recollect, we had created a model for user to map these fields. So here we have users. Then we also added login request and login response. So in the user class, we had this properties, username, password, and the role. In the login request, we pass the username, password, and then the response, we get the entire user details as I showed you in my in this Postman also. We get the entire. Okay, so the token is 1 minute. Let me just fetch the latest token because our project is not working. 1 minute. Let me just start the project. Okay. So we get the token back over here, and this should work now. So here in your login, once you log in, you get the entire user details and the token. So we have this response, login response, where we have the user details and the token. So we will need these data models, model classes in our school management project or as well. So you just simply copy it. So we can also share this model class over in this project, but as of now we'll just copy this so that our explanation and understanding of the concept is simpler. But also in the real world project, we'll have our own models in a project. So let's simply just copy this and paste it in our school management project. copy, whether we are able to, I'm not able to paste it. So let me just open in the browser Explorer and try to copy paste. Otherwise I can take it from the demo API. So just come to models, copy all these three and go to school management, models, and paste that over here. Now here I'm going to, you can see in the school management I'm able to see all those classes. I'm going to just local user and remove demo API and just say school management. Similarly, login request, school management, and then login response, school management. So rest all looks good. So our model class is ready now. Now what next we need to do is that we need to create a, okay, now I just close one so that, yeah. So now we are going to create a controller, okay, and then we will add a controller called, right click on the controller, say controller, select an empty controller, and let's call it auth user. So this is my controller name. Now once this controller is added, I'm going to create a login page and other views that will be required for access denied and logout, and then we'll add codes to it. Then we will see how we can use this login to log into our database and generate a token that will be passed in our student controller right over here. Okay, so now for that, step by step, we will first create a login. So here we will replace this index to login, and this is our view. It will return a view. So here I'm going to say that request object, so login request, because we need to take the username and password from the view. So this will be a login request. Login request class takes the username and password. So we simply create this. Now if you can see, there is an exception which says required no login email ID. Now it seems that this login request is part of the default keyword. We can see here, you can see it's coming to this identity model. So that is why it is pointing, but login request is the class name, that model name that we have given. So there's a conflict in the name. So what we can do is that we'll simply rename this to login request DTO and login response DTO. So because the login request itself is one of the keyword of the identity class, that is why we were getting that error. Okay, so now what we do is that we'll come back to our controller, auth user controller, and I'm sure now we will not face that issue. So login request DTO. Okay, I'm not sure why it did not. Login request DTO, yeah, the name is changed. Go to your auth user and okay, so now let me just rebuild once. Okay, now I can see login request DTO obj, and this is my object, and this I pass over here to the view. Then I'm going to right click and add a view. I'm going to just copy this, right click, add view, and paste it. So I've created one view. Similarly, we will create one more view for access denied, because there could be scenario that we'll need it. So then first we'll have a logout. Let's have a logout screen, and In logout, we are going to use HTTP context class, and we are going to manage that. As of now, just I'll add it over here, and then we'll obviously have one more view called access denied. This is required because we will actually deny access to the roles that are not supposed to access certain modules. So I'm just going to copy this, right click, add view, add empty view, copy this. So now we have created the views. In a sense, we have under the auth user we have login and we have access denied. So let's quickly just copy paste the code, razor code for the login page, and I'll explain to you. So here we'll go to the login page and copy the code over here. So this is the code, razor page code I've written, HTML code. So here we are using the model login request, which takes the username and password. Here you can see a form method. So action is login. So we'll create one more action over here in our controller, and then we have a container class over here. Inside the container class we have a header login with the background color and CSS. Then we have a validation summary that we have added. Then there is a controller. I'm just going to click on enter so that it's visible. It's a text box. Okay, similarly we have a text box for password, and then we have a button to submit. So once the submit is done, then action button, the post action is called, which we is not added yet, and this is the validation script that I've used. So let's go ahead and create the post method as well. Just add an entry over here. So let's go that. You go to the auth user, and here we are going to add one more post method called login. So once you submit the username and password, this will be an HTTP post. We'll add validate anti-forgery token, and this will be public async task I action result. This will be login, and here it will be a request login DTO, because here it will pass the username and password, and we'll have to write a code over here, which we'll write it. But here we'll have the login response DTO response DTO, and this will call the web API where we'll write the routine over here. As of now, we'll say return view, and this will be obj response. Okay, so this is the post method. Let's go and also go to our access denied page and add the small tag over here. So this is nothing, a container, and inside the container access denied, you are not authorized to view this page. Okay, so now let's run this page once, and obviously we need to also add that link for login. So for that, what we'll do is that we will go to our shared layout, and here we are going to add, go to our main nav class, copy this. So we have students, and so what we're going to do is just copy home, place it above the students, and then we'll copy one more time. This will be our login, and this will be a logout. We'll dynamically manage this. I'll show you how to do that. This our auth will be auth user or controller. We don't need the area over here. We're not using ASP area. And then this will be our login, which will be our login, and this will be our logout. So we have the logout defined, but we have not written the code. We will do that pretty soon. So this is our controller and auth user. We also have logout. Fine. So this will be our logout, and this. So we're going to dynamically manage that. As of now, we'll see how the page looks. So we'll run the project now. Here you can see we have students, login and logout. Now when you click on login, here you can see a beautifully login page is displayed, a small compact login page. and we are not written anything over here because we need to write the logic over here to log out. Also, we at any given point we'll be able to see only one link. If the user are not logged in, we'll be able to see the login. Once you log in, this will be dynamically managed and you can able to see log out. So now once we have achieved this, we have the structure ready and we have the page ready. Now let's go ahead and add the actual logic to call the web API for login and generate the token, and use it in our project for calling the other APIs. So for that, we go to services. Last time we had created an API service to call the API and perform all the CRUD operations like getting students and adding, deleting students, and this was a common API class that I created for students. We'll create a similar services for login and write a method to call the and validate the user from our ASP.NET MVC application. So right click on the services and we are going to add one service class over here. So basically right click on the service, say add new class, and let's call it as API user service. So now we go to our API service which was used for student, and we'll just copy this URL and the declaration of HttpClient. So it will be same over here as well. So we just copy that, which is the same URL. We create a constructor CTOR tab. So inside the constructor we initiate this client. So we're going to use the same code over here because the code is still the same. We can also create a routine to make this common across the classes, but as of now, just for simplification, we are calling that. So once we create the HTTP client in this user service API class, we initiate that client and we call it once and set the path for this client. I explained this in the previous video. So once that is done, now we are going to write a routine to authenticate the user. So we will say public async task, and this will be my login response because I want to capture the response of the login, and my method will be authenticate user, and now this will have login request which will have the user details, that is the username and password. Okay, so I'm just going to extend the area so that you can, yeah. So once that is done, now I'm going to create a HTTP response message. Okay, response, and this will be await underscore HTTP client, that is declared above dot, and this will be my post method as I showed you in my postman. Okay, post async, and this will be my login request DTO $enter, and this will be my API /user/user login, and I'm going to pass the user details. So this is how I'm going to pass and call the API. So once that is done, I'm going to say response.ensure success code. Once that is done, I need to capture the details. So say where contents equals to await response read as string, and then where API response, and this is my JSON converter, JSON convert dot deserialize object into login response DTO, and I pass the contents, and finally I return the API response. So this is the code, the same code that I had used. I'm going to add a breakpoint in my API service for students. You can see in the last video I explained to you everything. So this is how you need to call the API. Now this API which I have written authenticate user is actually taking the input username and password and then calling the API, and once the response comes we will get the user details along with the role, and along with that most important we are getting the token ID which will be used across our web application. So our method is ready. Now we will head back to our controller, that is auth user, to write the code in the post method. So we had created a post method over here, so we are going to write a code over here. So first thing, we are going to reference the API user service. So say private read only API user service, and this will be underscore API service. Okay, and in the constructor, so I don't have a constructor defined over here, which I'll do. I'm going to say CTOR tab, and this is my constructor, and inside the constructor I'm going to say API service as a new service. I'm going to instantiate that object. So once that is done, I'm coming to my post method over here. Okay, now I'm going to say, so I created object response, so I'm going to just call that object response, and here in the object response I'm going to say await for the API service dot authenticate user, and I'm going to pass the object. That's it. Okay, so here you can see I'm getting some request DTO. This is not request DTO, this is response, login response DTO. Okay, just want some small correction, response DTO. So now you can see it's calling this API. Now we need to ensure that here once the authentication is done, so we can also run this code right now and see whether we are getting authenticated. So I'm going to just validate that before I write the code to capture the token. I'm going to show you how our login is working. So I'm going to run the project now. Sorry, click on login, and then I'm going to type admin and admin, which is the user that I've added in my table, and click on login. So my post method is called. In my object I can see username, password. I'm going to press F11. It comes to our API user service class. Here you can see the detail is passed. Now here I'm actually calling the API. Okay, and yes, the response is 200. I got the response, and then I'm desetting the object, and see I have got the token, and I've also got the user details. You can see the details. So we were successfully able to call. You can see once again the token is passed over here. So this is the token, that JWT token structure, the header, the payloads, and the signature. And then we also have the user details, that is I have the user ID, the name, password, role, most importantly, and then I proceed, and then it comes with my response. Now what is the next step important is that I need to capture that token, set the token in the session that is used across the session period of this particular user, and that token I'm supposed to integrate in my student API and pass it to all the endpoints. So now once we know that our API is now getting called successfully, I'm going to remove the breakpoint. Now I'm going to capture the token. So how do I do that? First I need to validate if obj response not equals to null, and obj response dot token dot toString not equals to none. So this is the first criteria. You need to make sure that we got a proper response, and if we don't have the response, then we simply return. Okay, we need to set the token as null, and then we return the object as it is. So let's do that. So here you can see we are going to capture the token. So how do we capture the token is that we are going to use a HTTP context class. So HTTP context dot session dot set string, and here I'm going to give it a key name. That is, for me it will be app token, or it should be API token, and then I'll say object response dot token. So here I have saved the token. Now since I know that the user has successfully logged in, I'm going to redirect to action, and this will be an index, but also can specify the controller. This will be home. Okay, and in case if the login is not successful, need to make sure that the token is set to null or empty. So here it will be empty. Okay, so this is a code. So once this is done, you can I'll just debug it once again and just run the application once. Okay, so here I click on login. Here I can see admin, and I log in. I press F10. I got the response. Okay, so here I put a breakpoint. So here we showed you that our API is working. So now here you can see it's successfully authenticated, and here I'm storing the token. This is the token ID. You can see the token ID. It is set in API token. So yes, so now we are getting this error. Session has not been configured in this application request. So we are using HTTP context session class, but we need to also set up our application to use the session. So we do that by adding those in our program files. Double click on the program files, and here you can see use authorization. So now what you want to do is that under use authorization we are going to say app.use session. Okay, so we have added this. So we are going to run the application once again. Okay, unable to use also. Okay, so let me just also use authorization. So we have already used authorization, but since we are using login screen, we also need to use authentication, because we need to authenticate the user and then authorize and use session. So we need this because we also need to use the HTTP context class, which we are using to also the log out the user. And further we will also be using identity claims to make the application aware that we have logged in with a valid token, valid user, and so that we can also maintain the session and also use the logout functionality. So let's run this project once again. And I guess there are other keywords also to be added here, so it's not allowing me because I think so I need to also specify additional keywords over here, not just use sessions. I also need to add the session keyword before the app build over here. So we are going to do that by adding a builder dot services dot add session. Yes, so this is the one which we need to add, and then options lambda expression. Here we close this. And inside options we use some keywords like idle timeout. So I'll use, for consistency, I'll use minutes, and I'll use 10 minutes for now, and you can set it according to your requirement. Options dot cookie dot HTTP only through, and option dot cookie dot is essential is also true. So we added the setting. So this was the main setting. Before you add builder.build, we need to add this, and plus we need to also add the use session along with use authentication, because authentication is required because we are authenticating user. So we need to maintain that session and also login and logout. So now it worked, and now I'm going to click on login. So here I'm just going to type admin. So you can say that it is authenticated, and so here you're able to see that we are still having two labels. That should not be the case. So our session, our user were logged in, our token was successfully saved, but we need to first fix the navbar to display only one label. For that, what we are going to do is that we will conditionally manage that. For that, we'll go to our views, shared layout here. So here we need to manage either one of this, either login or logout. For that, we are going to inject HTTP context class. So we are going to use dependency inject. So we are going to inject that over here, inject Microsoft.asp.net core.http.ihttp context accessor, and we will name give it a name HTTP access. Okay, and just we'll call it an object, HTTP object accessor. So once we have this, we will scroll down and just between these two lines, login and logout. So these are two actions. I'll just press enter so that we can see all the code. So this is login and this is logout. Here we are going to add the condition statement. If HTTP object arc dot HTTP context dot session dot get string. So we had given a name, that is API token. Okay, is not null. And we'll copy this because we might need this. Dot toString dot len is greater than 0. That means it has a valid value. It has some value into it. So we are going to say show the logout screen as a login. So we are going to just copy this and paste it here and use the logout over here. So this should work. I'm just going to run the project again, and once we log in, we should be able to see logout now. Okay, so now we get this error, Microsoft HTTP context accessor, because we have not added this dependency injection in our program files. So let's do that. Let's go to our program over here and just builder.services.add singleton. Here you can see HTTP base and HTTP. So this is we need to add this dependency injection over here, and now we run the project. We click on login. Yes, we click on login, and then our username password is admin, and click on login. Here you can see it is now changed to logout. Now when I click on logout, I'll get an error because I have not written the code over there. So let's write the logout code. In the logout code, what we are supposed to do is that we need to set the session key to null, and also the log out the user and redirect back to the login screen. So we'll go to our auth user controller, and in the logout we need to write await HTTP context dot sign out, and then set this empty over here, and then redirect user to our login page, redirect to action. So this will be my login, and this will be my auth user controller. And also I'm going to change this to, since I'm using async task, and this will be my action result. So this writes the code. So now let's also see the logout in action. So we can see login. I click on login, admin and admin. I log in, and then I click on logout. Okay, so now we are getting no authentication schema was specified, and there was no default sign out schema found. So here we need to also add the authentication. So basically we will be using cookies, and we are going to store the token and use cookie based default authentication. So we have not set that up in the program.file. So purposely I've not done that upfrontly, because after every exception I'm adding it so that its understanding is clear. So let us add the default authentication mode over here. So once our entire login setup is done and we are able to store the token properly and set up the default credential, then we will go back to our the main agenda of how do I pass token to my APIs. But before that, we need to set up this environment so that we ensure that our APIs have been called by the proper role and proper credentials. So now, as the error specified, let's add the default authentication method and schema in a program file. So here I am in the program files right now. So just below the add session that we have added, and just below this add HTTP context accessor, we are going to say builder. First we are going to say builder.services dot add distributed memory cache. So why we need to add this memory cache is that since we are using cookie based session to authenticate the user, so this service can be useful for caching the data across multiple requests within a single application instance. So that is the reason we have added this. Now we are going to add the default authentication mode over here. So let's do that, and after this distribution memory cache, we're going to say builder.services.add authentication. Okay, and this will be our cookie authentication default dot authentication scheme. I'll just extend this. Okay, and then enter dot add cookie, and I'll pass some options. So here I'm going to say option dot cookie dot HTTP only through. I can also pass expire timestamp, which will be similar to our add session. I'm just going to copy that. Oops. Okay, and then sliding expiration also I can add, so that user, if you are already active in the session, can be extended further. So sliding expiration also can be added. There are other parameters like login path and access denied, which I'll show it to you as when we progress. So once we add this, I'm going to run the project again. So here I click on login, I enter admin, I click on login. Now I'm going to click on logout. So the moment I click on logout, now I'm successfully logged off, and it is redirecting me to the login page. Now if I click on student, what happens if I click on student is that I get an error saying that you are not authorized. So let's do one thing. Let us actually go ahead and now implement this second step, where we will ensure that we are passing the right token, the token that we have already saved in our session, that is API token. Okay, so how do I do that? For that, what we need to do is that go to our student controller, and here you can see we'll have to go to our services, that is API services that I did for students. And here you can see we are calling the APIs, but we are not passing in the session, that token that is required to be passed. So what I'm going to do is that my get all student will not take a parameter, and that parameter will be nothing but the token. So I'm going to say string token. So this is the parameter that will be required to be passed in all the methods. So it will undergo some change. For example, add student will also have and then we'll have also get student details will also have this token, then update will also have this token. Every method will have this token, and finally delete string token. Okay, so once we pass this, obviously when you run this project now you'll get an exception because our methods are not passing the token as of now. So I'll just show you that as well. So we'll just build this, and I'm sure you'll get an exception over here. So see, this is all the method that argument is not passing the token. So we will have to go to our student controller now, and here I want to pass the token ID. So it's very simple to pass this token ID over here in the controller. What you need to do is that simply type in http context dot session dot get string, and we had given a key name to it, so that key name is API token. That's it. So this will fetch the token and pass it. Now we want to copy this code and paste it everywhere wherever it is expected. So add student, here I am passing in, and then get student I'm going to pass over here as well. Then update student, again get student I'm passing here, and finally delete. So you see that I've actually called the method and I've passed the token ID in all the APIs, student API. Yeah, so you can see I've actually modified it, and now I'm passing the token ID in all the methods. So now if I build the project, I should not face any issue. It's successfully built. Okay, so now let's go ahead. Now let's see things in action. So I'm going to go to the service method of student, that is API service, and add a breakpoint in get student and click on start. So now if I click on login, so what I do is when I click on student, obviously I don't have the token over here. My token is empty. Again, you will get the same error. Here you can see it's getting the same error as unauthorized. We'll handle this exception page, but now let me authenticate it. Let me log in and provide a login token ID to the application. Yes, I've got a token ID with me right now. Okay, so now when I click on student, here the API is getting called. The token is there, but still I'll get the error because I am not setting the headers over here as I had set in the Postman. So how do I do that? It's very simple. Go to your API service. Okay, here I'm going to write one single line of code, that is underscore client, that is my client object dot default headers request headers dot authorization, the one that I had done it in the Postman, and new authentication header value. This is my bearer token, and this is my token value. That's it. This is how you need to set the token headers programmatically in our code. And here you can, I'm going to add that in everywhere wherever the token is required. That's it. I'm going to run the project again. Login, and I'm going to say, now I click on student. Okay, so now we set the header. Here you can see the token, and now I should be able to fetch the response successfully from my code. Here you can see 4 records are fetched, and I should be able to see the data as well. I should be able to do the same thing for my student, but before we go that, what we need to do is that I'll just log out once again and go to my student controller. Here you can see I have not added any authorized tag, and I want to set certain authorization over here, so we can do that. What you need to do to add authorization, so here this is an index that is fetches all the record. So now if you go to our user tables, I'm going to add one more user called student. Username is student, name is student, okay, password is student, and role is student. Okay, so this is the second role, this is the second login details I've added from the backend. What I'm going to do is that I'll show you how to authorize your endpoints using the roles. So you need to ensure that get all records can be authorized and viewed by two roles, that is roles. One is admin, comma, student. Okay, so this is how you need to add the roles. Now in this case, if I want to give the create only to the admin, I'm going to paste that. I'm going to remove student. Similarly, I want to ensure that creation of student is only to my admin. Details can be viewed by both, so I'm going to copy this. Details can be viewed by both, and then again I want to ensure that the update happens is done by the admin. Delete also is done by the admin. Okay, so this is how I set the authorization tool. Now let us see things in action. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to log in. And go to students. Okay, now you can see when I go to I logged in and I go to students, here you can see the path accounts login. Okay, it is pushing, since it is not authorized, it is pushing the user to the login page, but this is not the right path that the application is where the login page is. Okay, so what we need to do is that let me just check. Okay, this is right. So what we need to do, how do we ensure that the our login page is redirected whenever user does not have any rights? So for now I'm just going to ensure that the students is viewed only by the admin. Let me just do that once, and let me run the project once again. I want to just explain one concept. So I log in, I enter admin and admin, okay, and I click on student. Okay, it is actually redirecting me to no page found, because it is going to the URL accounts.login, and we don't have anything called accounts and login, we have auth user. So how do I do that? So we will first go ahead and do the setting in the programs. So here you can see there is I've added authentication over here in the program files. So in the authentication method, there is some few more parameters that I can add it. So here I can add option.login path, and this will be my /auth user /login. Okay, then there is also something called access denied. So here also I can specify access denied, and here I can use my path which I created a view called access denied. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to say /auth user /access denied. Okay, so this is the page that I had created. Now let's see what happens. There is still one exception which will come, and which I'll show you why it is coming. So here we click on login, and we click on admin. Now we click on student. Now it is redirecting me to the login page, even though the user logged in is authorized. So even if I log out and log in again with student, it will not allow me. So I click on login, I use student now this time. Now if I log in, I just put a breakpoint just to ensure that, check that whether we are getting the right role. I log in. So once I log in, I'll just see my response. Here you can see the user details and the role that I am getting a student, which is right. So now even for student, I don't think so it will allow. So I click on students. Still it is redirecting me to the login page, because somewhere down the line the application does not have the entire claim identity defined. So we need to create an identity, create a claim having the name and the role, and set a principal to it. So how do we do that? So we go to our auth user, and here once we set the token ID, just before that we need to create an identity claim where we'll pass the claim name as well as role, and set a principal that will be required so that it is an application. So basically we need to write this code to inform the application, or to tell the information, the above code, that user will always be redirected to the login page. The application should know that the user has successfully logged into the application. So the entire code that I'm going to write over here is just a mechanism. It's a way where you are telling the application that the entire user that is logged in as a valid session, and you need to maintain the user context, the user session, so that they can know that the permissions has to be granted since the user is valid. So this basically it allows the application to identify the user and their permission. Okay, so and also it allows the user to sign in with these claims using cookie based authentication, establishing a valid session. So in order to do that, so we have already created a setup where we are logging, we are allowing authorized user to log in, we are setting the token. We have actually used the HTTP access contest class of .NET to manage the login and logout, but we have not created a identity claim. So that we're going to do it right now over here. So we do that by adding a claim, and this is done by using this code. So after valid authentication, we are going to say that where identity equals to new claims identity, and this will be cookie authentication defaults, cookie authentication default dot authentication scheme. So this is the first liner. So this is part of the identity class of .NET that we have used in our channel also. So there are a lot of videos where I've used how to use the ASP.NET or .NET identity class to create a login registration and implement that into your application. So if anybody wants to get in-depth understanding of identity class, we can definitely visit our channel and check that video. So once we define this variable, we are going to say identity dot add claim, and we're going to say new claim, and the claim type will be user, then the name, and then comma, and this will be object response dot, so this will be object response dot name, user details dot name. So this is the first identity. Second is the role. So this is the name of the identity, and then we'll just copy paste that, and we have to copy this. We define the variable over here, then we add claim, and this will be role type. Claim type is role, and this will be the role, that is the admin or student. And then we define a principal object where principal equals to new claim, okay, new claim principal, and this will be our identity. And then finally what we're going to do is that await HTTP context dot sign in. So we need to sign in, and this will be cookie authentication default dot authentication scheme, comma, and principal. So here we are passing the principal object. So it's very simple. I'm defining an identity for this particular logged in user, and in that identity I'm defining the name, the role, and creating a principal, and then signing in to the HTTP contest. So everything is HTTP contest over here, and here the application now knows that someone authentication is logged in with the roles and username, and then we are proceeding with saving the token as well. So now let's run this project now. Now the application will know that the user has logged in, so it will not redirect but show the details. So I'm going to use admin. So now this time I'll click on student. Yes, you can see I'm able to see the screen because this is an admin. And if you note, I'll go to the student controller. Here I have only given access to admin. Here I'm going to log in now and show you how the access denied page is also working, because I already said that over here in the program. I've said access denied, show this page. So let's do that. Let's log out and log in as student. Okay, so logged in as student. Now when I click on this, it shows access denied. You are not authorized to view this page. Great. So now let's also give access to student over here. So we do that by putting a comma and say student. So now if I log in as student, I should be able to see the student list as well. So now I'm able to see, but I will not be able to add a new student because they don't have the rights, only admin has. So here you can see access denied. In fact, let me see whether I'll be able to delete. No, access denied. And edit. Here I'm able to edit it, but if you want I can restrict. So here it is not able to save it because there is an access denied. So got it. So we covered lot of touch base, lot of topics. I hope it was simple. I know there could be some confusion, but I recommend that first and foremost go ahead and watch all the videos that are uploaded till date, and then watch this 5th video. That is number 1. Number 2, go through these videos multiple times so that you can understand the concept very well. There are a lot of concepts which we covered over here about how to add session in your application, how to manage session across different requests, how do you store your token and then pass the token to the API so that it validates successfully and fetches the record, and how do you manage your authorize and provide the role-based access to the endpoints. So guys, I hope you like this video. Now what is the next step? Next step is there are three videos more on this web API. First is next we are going to show like how to use API caching. So what we're going to do is that we are going to add some dummy records, around 500 to 1000 records in the student database, and we are going to call that API over here. And two things, we will show you how do you use caching so that your response of read-only data is improved. That is the next agenda. Then we are going to use paging over here. So through the APIs we are going to implement paging, and finally we will deploy the ASP.NET web application as well as the web API in Azure. Okay, so more 3 videos to come, so stay tuned. Please do subscribe to my channel, share my channel link with all your friends, family and colleagues. Help us to grow our digital tech joint network so that it reaches to maximum developer community. And please do like and comment on my videos, and thank you so much for your time. Stay tuned.